Back to that Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. Welcoming back Nicole Parker, former FBI agent who you see on TV and here on radio and lots of different shows. She has spoken out recently about why she left the FBI, but her story of becoming an FBI agent to me was personally inspiring, and I'm grateful that she's a patriot and someone who loves her country and wants it to be kept safe. And Nicole, that brings us to this part of the conversation. Almost immediately, in fact, Mayor Eric Adams, who I don't agree with on much of anything here in New York City, I agreed strongly with his very strong statement of denunciation of Hamas, support for Israel, and said that really the despicable people were the people in his own city who celebrated as the attacks were happening. And we saw this all over the place. There were communities that said, yay, what Hamas has done is great, and Israel finally got what it deserves. And they went out and had parades and gatherings, and now they've had protests in Brooklyn this last week. There was an enormous protest put on by the people. Not one mention of Israeli, of the attack against the Israelis or the atrocities committed against the Israelis, only demanding that Israel stop its retaliation. And this is catching fire on college campus after college campus now, which I think is polluting the discussion even further. We have a seeming nexus between Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea at the present time, and Iran is funding the Hamas war. Russia is funding its war against Ukraine. It seems like we're on tenterhooks, and I just don't think it would take the world by that big of a surprise if somebody that had been able to access our country illegally in the last 3 years and maybe put a network together to carry out attacks here on the homeland. What are your thoughts about
in continuation with that, look, I witnessed the terrorist attacks on September 11th of 2001. And guess what? We didn't have an open border back then like we do now. And we still had people inside of our country that were going to flight school here in Hollywood, Florida, that were ended up flying airplanes into the World Trade Center. So it doesn't even necessarily take an open border. What I'm saying is it exponentially makes it substantially worse and a higher threat and a higher danger that you have that in addition to existing threats that already existed here. I think a lot of our country has shifted heavily in the last several years to a position of seeing domestic terrorism as the number one threat facing our country, because that's what you've heard over and over and over. That's what's been in the public. That's what you've heard. I can tell you, I sure hope that the Bureau is all hands on deck with what's happening now with foreign terrorist organizations that may have appeared to be dormant for a substantial period of time. Maybe you didn't hear about them in the news like you have other things. But I can tell you, terrorists don't sleep. They don't rest. Just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean that it's not going on behind the scenes. So you have to be aware and alert at all times. As a former agent, I can tell you that the FBI does have that is their number one priority, is to protect the United States from a terrorist attack. Of all of the investigations, everything that they do, that is the FBI's number one priority, is to prevent another September 11th of 2001 from occurring here ever again. And I sure hope that the resources are now being heavily focused on foreign terrorist groups as they have been on domestic terrorist groups, as you've seen in the last several years, because I can tell you there are people that hate this country and they would love nothing more than to attack us. And so all hands on deck, tips are coming in very, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, has been out there saying, yeah, the tips have gone out the roof as far as potential threats in the United States. They have to sift through every single one. Every single one has to be addressed. You don't know which one could be the tip that might lead to something dangerous. And guess what? There may be a tip that never comes in. And you have these lone offenders that are using this as an opportunity. They're thinking, you know what? This is my moment to shine. I can get on the world stage and I can do something very dangerous and harmful and hurt people. This is a very difficult time, and we have to be alert and aware. Those of us here on U.S. soil, we have to watch our backs. You've got to be vigilant. I know that they're amping up law enforcement presence in front of synagogues, in front of mosques. All different sorts of religious affiliations are targets. And it could happen here on our own. Look, after what I saw September 11th of 2001, I realized anything is possible. And it was awful and it was tragic, but it taught me to never underestimate evil. But at the same time, Kevin, never underestimate good either. There are good people there. We are united. We love this country. We love our allies, and we will stand up for what is right. And just don't get so overwhelmed with negativity. I want to be real, but you know what? There's always hope, and there's also always light. So pick what side you're going to be on. I hope you choose light, choose goodness, but there's a battle between good and evil going on in our world. And we all need to be aware. We need to be vigilant, and we need to be making a difference in our communities where we can.
That's so well said. Nicole Parker, thank you for your time. Thanks for being with us.
Pleasure.
You got it. Kevin McCullough coming right back from New York.
Ready or not, he'll be right back. That Kevin.